So in the first games back, Porto lose, Benfica and Sporting draw. Who thought they'd be camera shy? Welcome to another edition of Lockdown Football. We'll definitely have to change the name soon. Will Downing with you alongside my fellow commentators Mark Rodden, Dimitro Julai and Stefan Joni. A couple of players with interesting stories for you today. Later on, we're talking to Markus Poom, who's come a long way from being a schoolboy in the stands, seeing his father Mart Poom keep goal for Derby, Sunderland, Watford and Arsenal. Now he's a league winner in his own right, an international footballer and still only 21. But first, the man who became the first Irish player in 10 years to feature in the Club World Cup when he lined out for Team Wellington in Qatar for the 2018 edition, only to be beaten on penalties by Al Ain in the quarter-finals. He's now in the Polish League fighting a dual promotion push and relegation battle in their equivalent of the Championship with Stomil Olsztyn. They're 4 points off the promotion playoffs, 6 points above the relegation zone. It's definitely going to be an interesting run-in for the final 11 weeks of the season for Eric Molloy, formerly of Arklow Town and Wexford FC. And how's the lockdown been over there?
Thanks very much for having me on. What's it been like? It's been difficult, I suppose. Trainings and matches and all cancelled, and then you're put into quarantine and told you can't train or go outside your door. It has been tricky. But I think Poland have kind of really gone to the forefront and tried to get back football as quickly as possible, because I think it benefits everyone getting it back, like fans, clubs, players, everyone. So I think from the minute this quarantine really happened, they were following the guidelines from the government, but they were always thinking how to kind of nearly try and get football back or get it close to becoming back, and trying to nearly push the boundaries, but trying to be as actually following the proper protocols. So there was no any of the government laws kind of being broken. They kind of set out then a schedule every kind of nearly 2 weeks for clubs to kind of follow and stuff, and they either added to it or kept it the same, depending on the situation and the laws that were in place. Yeah, we're finally getting back to playing now with the rest of the league on Tuesday.
Yeah, and where you are at the moment with Stomil Olsztyn is 12th place, but you're 5 points off the promotion playoffs and 6 points off the relegation spots. So, I mean, in one way, you're very, very well placed. 2 wins out of the last 5, 2 losses as well. So it's kind of been 50-50 in form heading into the lockdown.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Like, the one thing that stands out about this league, it's a very tight league. There's no team that's like far ahead of anyone else, and I suppose, one win or two could bring you a good few places up the table. We're very optimistic. Like, we're very positive. I feel like we kind of made 1 or 2 signings at the start of the year, and training has been going really good of lately, and you can start to see some really good patterns, and some of the things we've been working on are starting to come off. We're feeling very excited, very happy to be back playing, and we're really looking forward to push forward. We want to finish in like the top 5, top 6, the promotion spots.
It is mainly a Polish squad. You've got Czech player, Japanese, Albanian, Ukrainian, a Latvian goalkeeper. So it seems like there's a good mix of nationalities there.
Yeah, no, there is. There's definitely a good mix. But the one thing, first when I arrived in, it was a little bit difficult with the language. Most of the people spoke Polish, but some of them signings that have been brought in, they've all have really good English. So it's kind of been a bit of a positive for me, so I can talk and bounce more of my ideas off more of the players, and kind of make more friends, because it's very hard to converse with someone that has 0 English and I have 0 Polish. There's only gestures and smiles and different things that communicate. So a friendship can kind of only go so far when you can't really communicate. But yeah, there's a wide mix of players, so there's a very good experience and some different ideas and stuff on football, which is always good to talk about.
I mean, it's a sizable city. It's a regional city. How did you end up there in the first place for this season?
Well, I probably came back from New Zealand. I spent 3 years out there, or 3 seasons. And I came back to Ireland, and I was thinking about what I was going to do next. I was trying to move on or move up. I had an option to stay in again another season as well in New Zealand, but I decided I wanted to change to something different. Yeah, I've tried a few options. I was exercising a lot of contacts and stuff, and this kind of came up on a period where I didn't really have anything on that week. They said if you can get over, like I think this was on the Thursday, and they said, oh, well, if you can get over on the Saturday and Sunday, we'll have a look at you. So I literally said, right, I booked the flight and I got over there, I think Saturday, and I trained and all week. At the end of the week, I liked it and they liked me as well. So they offered me a contract and I said, well, look, there was only 6 games left in League of Ireland. Most other places, they're kind of finishing or in the middle of the season. These were just kind of starting, and I thought this would be a good, like, kind of fresh start. Get in here and try perform and play professionally, play every day. And I said, yeah, I liked it. So I eventually signed, and here I am still.
But I mean, you've had really a remarkable career, because you were with Arklow Town. You were with Wexford for 4 seasons, 5 seasons. Then you went to Southern United. Then you were in Wellington, so 3 years in New Zealand. And then Poland. And in one way or another, those are all quite remarkable moves. So how did they come about?
Well, each move kind of came about a little bit differently. When I went to Arklow, I was actually playing with FC Carlow before that. I don't know, it was like one of them forgotten clubs that somehow they didn't survive. But I thought I wanted to play underage football because I was only 17 at the time. So I wanted to play under 18, you know. And I went to Arklow under 18s. And then I kind of ended up playing in their senior team then by chance. But I was looking to play in the under 18s, you know, and do well in under 18 football. My old manager from FC Carlow, Shane Keegan, got the job in Wexford. Even though before that, Noel O'Connor was on to me to come down before that. And I said, no, I'm not going to come down halfway through a season. I want to start a fresh start or nothing, you know. And Shane Keegan then got the new job. So then I ended up going down to Wexford and played there for 4 years. That was great memories, great experience. And then there was an opportunity that came about that I heard of, a great opportunity to go to New Zealand from one of my former Ireland University managers and Carlow IT managers, Paul O'Reilly, and he got a job out in New Zealand and then eventually got the head coach of Southern United. And he was kind of asking around for players, and I heard this opportunity, so I just asked Paul, you know, what's going on, what is the situation? He kind of said, yeah, he was very interested and would like me to come out and kind of propose something for me. And I was like, well, this is kind of an opportunity I can't turn down. It's only like 3-4 months and I can come back for League of Ireland season. But I ended up liking it so much in New Zealand that I stayed for a year, longer than I thought. And then I ended up doing well that season. And when I played well against my old team, Team Wellington, in some of the matches we played in the league. And I did well. I've scored like 7 goals and a few assists for Southern. Like, in comparison, Southern have they've probably only won 1 match in the whole year in the last 3 previous years. So now we've won a few games and I'm scoring a few goals and they're kind of rising. People took notice of that, and I probably had a few options. But when Team Wellington came in, I was like, yeah, I just have to go. When it was an article that I said I wasn't going to be signing with Southern, and they seen it, and the manager got in contact with me, and that's how I ended up in Team Wellington. And I really liked it there, so I stayed there for 2 years. And then I was probably missing home a bit and Ireland, and I kind of learned a lot from Team Wellington, and I thought I want to try and move on and get into the professional setup. And I could have stayed in Wellington and been comfortable and enjoyed the lifestyle, but I said no, I'm going to go out and search for something a little bit more challenging, and that's what I kind of did. And the challenge led me to Stomil.
I just wanted to ask, since you were playing for Team Wellington, about that crazy game against Tallinn in the Club World Cup, because before they came, everybody was saying, it's just a team from Oceania, they can't do anything. And then you're 3-0 up in, I don't know how many minutes. So what happened in that game? Can you tell us a bit more about that particular game?
Oh, that one still hurts. I can tell you, we had very good tactics. We prepared very well for that. So we knew exactly what we were kind of going to expect from Alain. We knew them kind of inside out. We knew what they were going to do, and we knew how we could hurt them. We knew our abilities. So we've been training towards that, even in practice games, everything, working on what we wanted to do. And we executed everything. We kind of a little bit more quality too. We could have gotten maybe a 4th. They ended up scoring just before half time to bring it 3-1. Second half came out, and I think that what really stood to us was you're playing in 30-something plus degrees heat. We started tired. They're playing in that every day. They don't, they probably don't even feel it at this stage. We started to feel it. We're giving everything. And yeah, I think we kind of slightly ran out of legs. And when we started to run out of legs a bit, they really started pushing forward, trying to hurt us. And we were trying to hold on. And I think, they scored in the last 5 minutes to bring it to extra time. And then eventually went to penalties and we lost. But we were also testing ourselves to see how good we are against some of the world. Like, some of these players are class. Like, Caio signed with a Portuguese team for 40 million after that. Marcus Berg played in the World Cup against Sweden, lost to England in the quarter-final. Like, you're talking really quality players we're playing against. And it was good to see what level we're at, and we could compete on that level. Yeah, Alain went to Holland to play Real Madrid in the final. So you're saying that they're one of the best teams in the tournament, Alain, and we put it really up to them. So it kind of just shows the quality that's actually there, and the standard of coaching that we had in Team Wellington and actually in New Zealand too. That's kind of what happened, in my view.
How would you compare, actually, the competitive level of New Zealand League and football in general? Well, with Irish League, obviously, because you played in that league, but maybe with some, let's say, third, second tier divisions of Europe?
I think it's underrated massively. There is a gap as well. Like, another way with our Polish League One here, it's like they're all kind of similar teams. They're similar standard, similar professionalism, similar stadiums. You know, it's quite similar here. In Ireland, you have a bit of a gap. You have like a top two of Dundalk and Rovers, and then you have like another bunch and maybe one or two at the bottom. Well, in New Zealand, it's like you have a top two like Ireland, and then you have like a pack of five, and then you have two or three that are not good at all. Like, there is a big gap there. But the top two, the quality they have is very, very underrated, in my opinion, from around the world. If Team Wellington, say, in Auckland came into the Irish League, I think they would be performing at Dundalk or Rovers level, or not even higher, in my opinion. They're very heavily weighted on tactics, analysis, and, you know, body shape, body position, where you can hurt teams, this kind of stuff. Like, you know, it's very detailed. Like, it's very professional. The thing why I say it's underrated is because it's you're in that environment, it's very professional. But on the outside, everyone looking in, you just see, New Zealand amateur league. Facilities aren't too great. You know, it's like, they're no good. And it's like people don't see what's actually going on behind the scenes in one or two of the clubs. You know.
This is Stefan. I have a question in relation to your spell in Team Wellington, and we know the A-League is quite close to New Zealand, and we have Wellington Phoenix playing the A-League. I did commentary on the A-League for a few years as well, for a French perspective. But have you any contacts with Wellington Phoenix whatsoever?
Yes, actually I do. Yeah, surprisingly, I kind of moved house when I was in Wellington in the second year, and I moved into like an apartment very close to the Wellington Phoenix guys, the younger guys who were in the academy, and they've been training with the first team. So I got on like a house on fire with them, like very good. Like, they were really good friends and mates, and they're only young lads, so they didn't see some of the pitfalls and stuff I'd seen in football. So I would be helping them along. And you think a 26-year-old hanging out with 19, 20-year-olds, you think, well, how is that going to work? But it actually, we got on really well, and they introduced me to some of the other, one or two other Phoenix players, and I became very friendly with them also. And Team Wellington and Wellington Phoenix have very good contact. So our head coach was best mates with the academy coach, and our assistant coach was already in the Phoenix as well, coaching too. So there's a real strong connection there. And the thing is, I tried to get in there, but the difficulty with getting into Wellington Phoenix was they have 5 import spots. And if you look at some of the quality of the imports that they're taking in, like Stephen Taylor's played, I don't know how many games, and captain Newcastle, and I don't know if he's in around an England squad, I'm not sure. The quality he has, he's one of their imports. And David Ball, I think, is Man City, or he's played at a very top level too. Like, they're the kind of imports that they had coming in. So that was always ruling against me. Saying that, I was on their radar. They were in contact with me, and they were waiting on 2 contacts. And if the 2 contacts didn't come through, I was going to be having a look at and possibility of signing, you know. But the 2 contacts decided to go with the Phoenix. So I then actually had to look for other options.
You spent 2 years and a half in New Zealand. And we know that New Zealand, it's a rugby country, and they're all Blacks. And we talk very little about the All White. They went to the World Cup, a few years ago. And what is your view about, football in New Zealand? Have you seen like a change, since the World Cup, participation from the New Zealand, or can you see like more kids playing football in the streets or in school? Like,
100%. Since I moved out within 3 years, the difference has been, I think, Paul O'Reilly and some of my mates down in Southern, Conor O'Keefe, Stephen Last, Andy Mulligan, Danny Ledwith, Danny Furlong and them, they all did a very good job down there developing football. But also, Team Wellington was heavily involved with the community and working with young players and all that. And I have seen, like, rugby is massive down there. It's like they play that in schools. They're in the lunch break time. They have rugby balls, like, say, we would have hurls or slitters or, you know, in Kilkenny, for example, you know, going around with them. But in the last, I think there was a kind of a research done lately and said that football has actually, in the youth, kind of an underage, has the numbers have outgrown rugby. That's how big football is starting to grow in New Zealand. The thing about New Zealand was they had a bit of, the only way to put it was very similar to what happened with John Delaney in the FAI. I'm not sure what went on, but the head kind of guy that was in charge, I think, got dismissed, and certain things were happening in New Zealand football which didn't really bode well. And then the New Zealand national team didn't have a game for a year, just over a year. Like, so I'm not sure what went on there. That wasn't looking good. You know, you want your national team performing well because then all the kids have something to aspire to and look up to. In that regards, I think the underage help, they all like football and parents are getting them into football. But the national team and that it probably needs to gain back a little bit of reputation, which I think it will, because they have some fantastic players playing overseas and they have very good young players playing overseas too. So if you give them 1 or 2 years and they come back into the New Zealand setup, it looks very promising.
Hi Eric, Mark here.
Hey Mark.
Yeah, just wanted to ask, did obviously playing in the Club World Cup was a highlight, but did scoring against Chelsea for Bows help your move maybe last summer?
I'm not too sure. I never asked, but yeah, that was a bit of a surreal highlight. I was more shocked by the whole thing when I heard about, actually we have a friendly this weekend. I was like, okay, maybe it's a Leinster Senior League or something like that, you know. Next time I heard Chelsea, I was like, oh lads, you're taking the piss here. Who's having me on here? And I was like, no, we're actually, you're meant to keep it quiet, we're playing Chelsea. And I was like, that more shook me. Because I was training with Bows and Pats, you know, and I was looking to try and show them what I could do. And also, I was trying to keep fit myself, you know, because I'd come back to New Zealand and I had kind of 3 or 4 weeks, well, not off, but like no touches of a football, more gym work. And I was like, I need to get back out playing and keeping that right. So I wanted to get into a game or in training. So I was training with them, and when I heard there was a game, I was happy. But when it was Chelsea, I was just like, this couldn't be sweeter. Like,
can you tell us about the goal? How many top defenders did you dribble past?
I don't think there was too much dribbling. I just remember watching the game, and from the weeks before I was training, I'd always Keith. He was always very in training. He looked forward all the time. The minute he got the ball, he always looked forward. So when I was seeing the situation arise, I just seen that we were about to win the ball back. I could see Keith in space, and I was like, he's going to play forward. I need to be in front of him. I just need to be there. So I seen we just won the ball back, and the pass then went to him. So I was already on my bike, took off, and I'd seen a gap between centre back and full back, and I was like, I just need to be there because I know what's going to happen. I was lucky enough to kind of outpace the full back. He didn't see the situation as quick, and he was probably tired. I was a little bit fresher, and I took a very good pass, and I took a very good touch, and I went to go across the keeper. Looked across the keeper and everything like that, and last second I went right. So I think the keeper kind of thought I was going to go to his right, you know. And at last second I went to my right, and delighted I went in.
And obviously it's you said you liked the challenge, you wanted a challenge, but it's a huge challenge going to obviously New Zealand's the other side of the world, but Poland, you've got a whole different hurdles to overcome. Did you get any advice before you went over, or did you just see what it was like?
There was not really much advice at all. It was like I just heard, yeah, it's a good club, go and see what you think. And I was like, yeah, I'll go over here and see what I think. I don't have to sign anything. And I just went over, and yeah, it was difficult with the language, you know, like players are a bit nervous speaking English and don't really want to speak English too much, you know. And I'm coming into their kind of club and stuff, and you're trying, as a new player, everyone kind of nearly, you know, are weary of you and curious, like, what's this lad like and everything. it's a difficult challenge, and the difficulty then you're trying to talk. You can't really communicate as much. You have to show people what you're like by your actions. So that was most important to me when I come out here. You try and do the right thing. You have to be a lot more visual. Even if you're tired and stuff, the minute the coach, you have to look up, you have to see what he's saying, seeing what's going on. You have to be more proactive and ask people what's happening, what's going on, what's tomorrow. It has had its challenges, don't get me wrong, but like at the end of the day, like football is kind of a universal language. So I think lads kind of notice after a week or two that, you know, he's decent, he understands things, he's able to help the team and stuff like this, and then things start to become a lot easier then after a few weeks, you know.
Killian Sheridan's a couple of hours up the road from you, I think. Have you any cause to reach out to him or anything like that over the couple of months you've been there? Or did you miss each other in Wellington? You're at different clubs. I don't know if you're in New Zealand at the same time.
That's actually a strange thing that happened, as we did bump into each other in Wellington. I think there was a weekend where we had both Wellington Phoenix and us had like a weekend off, and I managed to meet him in a bar, because some of the Team Wellington lads are friends with the Wellington Phoenix guys, because a lot of the Team Wellington team is made up of ex-Phoenix players. So they've all played with the Phoenix and know the lads. So I ended up meeting them out there and chatting to him. I didn't really know of him before this, you know. But then when I heard about him and what he's done, I was kind of like, oh, wow, you know. And another Irish guy out here, it was great to just hear the accent. And then, he signed in Poland, and then maybe, I'd say 1 or 2 months later, he signed in Poland. And it was interesting because he was already signed in Poland before. And it's interesting, a player like him, and he's played Champions League football, played with Celtic and stuff, chose to come back to Poland. Of other places he could have went, it kind of shows you like the certain aspects here in Poland. Football is actually very good. Like, it's very professional. Fans, you're treated like you're kind of like a top footballer here. Like, totally different than New Zealand and Ireland. It's a little bit more pushed to the side and go, oh, you play soccer. While here it's more like it's a bigger deal. So I can see why he's chosen to kind of come here as well. No, I haven't reached out to him yet, but I do see his Instagram stories now and again and stuff what he puts up, and he's quite funny.
And one last one from me as well. Just there's not that many Irish players go abroad. Carlow has booked the trend a little bit with Padraig Amond going to Portugal, but with Passos de Ferreira. But in terms of, you know, going beyond England or Scotland, you know, is it something you'd recommend, or is it something that you could see more Irish players doing in future? You know, you're describing just the levels of professionalism and stuff like that. You're seeing it in different countries and the opportunities that are there. Yeah,
like, in my personal opinion, it's a great opportunity for people to do it. Now, saying that, it is very difficult. Like, I can see why people don't. You really have to get out of your comfort zone. You have to have a mentality where, like, whatever challenge is put in front of you, it's literally just a little obstacle. Like, no matter how difficult things are, you have to have, like, the end goal or your end aim in sight all the time. And no matter how difficult that is, you have to take responsibility for a lot of things. Like, you have to be very accountable for everything you do. It's a very difficult thing to move abroad, but I'll tell you the positives of doing it is you learn to be able to deal with any challenge. You learn the right way to do things. You're kind of freed from any stigmas that are back home, like if people think you're this or you were that when you were 16, 17. It's like you develop and grow and improve so much since then. It's like people then actually see your ability for how it is. And the thing is, you learn so much about football. Like, if you're playing in a different country or a different club, they have different concepts, different styles, they have different ideas. And if you're very attentive and you're eager to learn, you can develop very quickly by kind of going from, say, 2 years, 3 years in one club to another club. You can pick up so much knowledge and information that can make you a lot better than if you just stay in the one environment all the time. So I do find if a person has a strong personality or wants to have a strong personality, I think going abroad is a fantastic opportunity. Plus, you get to travel and see the world and play football at the same time. Like, I personally think it's great. It's not as you said before, not the typical going to England and stuff, but my journey wasn't about going to England and getting into a club where you get paid big money. My journey was more, I want to go and kind of see and learn and develop. I want to improve. That's all with an ultimate goal. I want to be at the best. I want to get to the best or highest level myself, or best performance level, that maybe I have a chance of getting in and really helping, say, the Ireland team, for example. It's that ultimate aim that I'm constantly trying to strive towards. Still on that journey.
Eric, back in October, your team were just 3 points off the top. And then suddenly the goals dried up. You haven't won for a month and a half, almost 2. So what happened? So you're closer to relegation zone now than to promotion.
At first, I was just kind of watching everything and seeing how the team play and stuff. And the league is so close. I kind of understand. I understand the reasons why, but I don't think I should probably say this, because I don't want to be calling out any player or anything else in the club or anything to do with that. But in regards to some of the games, we have been a bit unlucky in regards to, we were 0-0 in one game pushing. We've missed some chances that were like, the ball's been crossed, he's headed it, or he had a shot, and it's just narrowly went wide. And then in the same game, the team had a throw in around the halfway line. The ball boy gives it to the striker, who's right nearly 10 metres from the corner flag. He throws it in to the winger, and the winger shoots and he scores, and we lose 1-0 in like the last 10 minutes. And then you're losing a point there. And also, like, we've had, in our case, well, I think we should have had maybe 1 or 2 more penalties where our striker has been manhandled and literally nothing given. While the opposition, we've been given a few penalties against us. I'm not trying to say anything about officiating or anything like that. I'm just trying to say that in football, decisions kind of are made. And in this league where everything's so tight, they're the difference between points of you going 3rd and 4th to like where we are at the minute. But I think we've worked on a lot of other things now in the last... We've had a lot of preparation because of this coronavirus and the mid-season break that's here in Poland. I feel a lot more positive and that we can actually fight our way through to another few wins and get higher up.
Considering that it's officially a second language in Ireland, I just wanted to ask, już mówisz po polsku?
Mały do polsku. Dobre. I kind of listen to some of the everyday slang, and it's only 1 or 2 words in a sentence I can put, but usually I only need 1 word to communicate. I kind of can get the gist of what people are saying, and then I kind of can say in 1 word response to something, so they understand what I understand what they're saying. I can pick up the little things.
Your first steps at Wexford in the first division and getting promotion to the Premier Division, and then moving to New Zealand, and then now in Poland. As you game change, as a player, have you made, some great improvements, in your game? And can you tell us a bit more about your progression?
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Like, massive. I reflect a lot. When I was in Wexford, I was kind of a kid, kind of like not really 100% focused, not really really in tune with everything in football and understand how everything works. I was just learning. I was just giving myself 100% effort and just trying my best. But I didn't really learn, like, say, for example, the tactics side of it, the importance of things you do outside of football, even the mentality. I was only young then, I kind of look back and say, how did I play back then? Looking back at myself, I think, I wasn't that good. Now it's like every kind of season I've kind of like grew a bit. Whether in Wexford, I think I've grown more physically. Like, I was more into like strength training and exercises like that and fitness. While when I went to New Zealand, the game, the pace and the style of football is all around tactics, and it's a little bit slower and more thought. Like, there's more thought process involved. In Ireland, it's a lot faster and it's like quick. So I learned a lot more about tactics then, and especially when I went to Team Wellington, and my first season was difficult there. I'm not going to lie. I was physically strong, very fit compared to all the players, but tactically I was nowhere near the rest of the lads, and I really needed to work on that. And also technically, the guys in Team Wellington, I could make up for a lot of things through my pace and through my fitness. But if I wanted to do well, I knew I had to improve technically as well. My touch, my ability to perform certain skills, one touch, and these sort of things. So I had to work basically stopped doing kind of more strength work, heavy strength work, and doing more flexibility work to get myself flexible enough to be able to perform some of the skills that you need in the high level. So I worked on that constantly. I did notice though, after a while, after 2 years, that I wasn't as quick, but I was a lot more technical. And by the end of it, like, my technical ability was very good, and I was performing things that, like, I would never been able to do in, say, Wexford or stuff. Towards the end of Team Wellington, I started getting back into my strength work. Yeah, when I was in Ireland, and I worked on more resistance work. I always kind of researched. I've always looked up stuff, asked people questions, physios, picked their brains to find out why I'm doing this or what's this exercise for, to understand. I put the emphasis on myself to know my body and to get to the level where I need it. Not on any physio, not on any doctor, not on any coach. It was all my doing. So I really kind of gathered information and then performed whatever I was doing, the exercises and activities, and then reflected on them to see if they were working. And every time I kept tailored them to what I need to improve. So then when I came to Stomil, I'd say they were a bit shocked that, like, I was physically fit and strong, but also very flexible, and I had, like, a good technical ability, and they could see this. And then they were more focused on, oh, is he mentally tough, and is he physically able for this level of this league, because it's a physical league. So they put me through a week of, like, 2 trainings on a Monday, 3 on a Tuesday, 2 more on the Wednesday, and they brought me in at like 7:30 in the morning to do a bleep test, kind of yo-yo test on the morning after a heavy training. When some guys have only done 2 and 3 trainings in the week, who's like being tested rigorously. And at the end of that week, you know, I played well in all the games, but I was so knackered. I said I needed 2 days off or I'm going to break down, because you just can't put anyone through this and expect them to just keep doing it. So they actually were really happy and offered me a contract, and they gave me a bit of rest as well. So I have, like, the player I have been since Wexford to now has just been a dramatic change. And I'm very aware of, like, tactics, positioning, things I would never have had a clue of when I was in Wexford. I worked on a lot of skills that are required for, say, the top level. You look at De Bruyne and you think, how is he putting the ball in around the back 4 on the ground with such pace and stuff? And I'm like, well, I've been working on that, and I've become very, very good at that kind of, it's nearly a strength now. And I've been working on my technical ability. So, like, before you'd be iffy about your touch. Oh, can I control it? Can I control it? Now it's like, oh, I'm nearly 90% sure I can control whatever is kind of, it will go where I kind of want it. I have improved massively, and it's like, I still have the mentality to continue to do so.
I mean, brilliant stuff, Eric. Thanks very much for that. And I mean, the city that you're in, it's around the size of Cork City, something around 250,000. So if you manage to get up, you're not far off the playoffs, it would be a really big deal for the city then.
Oh, huge. Football is taken massively here. Similar to how it would be with the, you know, clubs in GAA and the community. It's like, football is like that here, and it's just on a big kind of scale. So it would be a massive deal. That's what I'm aiming, or we're aiming to do, is to try and get the club up there and get into promotion.
And how close do you feel then to the Ireland squad that you mentioned earlier, if you were able to get up into the top flight, or if you ended up playing somewhere else?
I have no idea. It's not in my control. You know, the football is about subjective to other people. You know, you have to kind of produce. And this is why I'm looking forward to football coming back, so that I can show people what I can do, so that everyone can form their own opinions, you know, and hopefully good ones. But that wouldn't be my job. That'd be more your job, or other people in the Ireland setup and stuff.
Lovely stuff. Listen, that's great, Eric, and best of luck for the rest of the season with the promotion push. Hopefully it will be a promotion push, and we'll be hearing a lot more about you over the next couple of months.
Oh yeah, hopefully, definitely. And thanks very much for all your questions and your curiosity. I appreciate it.
Stomil Olsztyn drawing 0-0 with Krobry Głogów midweek, back in action on Sunday. So too are Flora Tallinn, and a busy week coming in Estonia, where a midweek round means they'll all be playing 3 games in the space of 10 days, and 2 of Flora's fixtures are big Tallinn derbies. First this weekend, it's 2018 champions Carlow away, and then on Wednesday week, the biggest game of the season in terms of crowds, Flora against Levadia Tallinn. Markus Poom has helped Flora to 2 of the last 3 titles in Estonia. He's now a senior international for his country, and unlike his father, is an attacking midfielder. He's Derby born as well. So Markus currently lying second, 2 points behind Levadia, 4 wins, 1 draw, unbeaten, and a good start to the season.
Yeah, exactly. So it's always good to start the league again. It's been a long waiting process, but I think everyone's eager to start playing a lot of games again and just getting back to their full fitness.
And have you noticed, is there a bit more attention on the Estonian League now that you're one of the few leagues that have started up early again in Europe?
Yeah, I think that there's been a little more attention, and I think that Estonians also sense that it's we're quite proud that we started up so quickly. We've also given our television rights to a foreign country to show our games, such as that showed our games in Macedonia, Serbia, and other countries like that. So I think it's always positive that other countries can also see what our league's like.
And how is life in Estonia at the moment? Still a little bit different from usual?
I think it's a little bit different, but also from today, the regulations have gone less, so we don't have any more these strict regulations, and it's getting better by better every week. But you can also feel that the people are a little bit on edge, which is normal. I think that's in every country, and I think even if this coronavirus all goes away, it will still have some impact. That life won't be like it was before. So I think things will never be like it was before, but I think that's also a good thing that we're more cautious of how we live our everyday life.
So as a player, how frustrating had it been to have just got a round underway, the first match played, a cup tie played after that, and then you have to shut down as a professional footballer for over 2 months?
Yeah, of course, it was a big shock. I think at first there was so much of the feeling that you don't know what's going to happen. So we were just updated daily to find out if we can start training, what will our training even look like, when would the league start up again. So there's been a lot of unknowns, but finally we're up and running, so that's positive.
And the first game back, it was a live TV game against Tammeka of Tartu. And was there a bit of rustiness, having not played, got much training underway? It finished 0-0. It's your only drop point so far of the season.
Yeah, of course, you can see that there's a lot of rustiness, but I think all the players are really eager to show, and by that also there can be a lot of mistakes coming in, that you want to show a lot of your ability, but maybe your ability isn't at its peak. So it's hard, and also because in the stadium there aren't people allowed to watch the games. It was quite a surreal feeling, that especially if we play in a big stadium, but it's very well heard everything that's said on the pitch. It also takes away a bit of that feeling, because I think that football is never really the same without fans. So that was also a part that where it plays a big part of if we play our best game or slightly worse.
Markus, you stayed on the bench for that first game against Tammeka. Then you came on as a substitute to the next one when Ainsalo was injured very early in the game. So why did you stay on the bench in those first 2 games? Was there any particular reason for it?
I think there wasn't any particular reason. Maybe because I'm also coming back from an injury, and because we are thought to win every game. So I think it was a game that was really tight against Tammeka, that maybe the coach didn't want to change too much of the players, because we were actually playing really okay in the second half, and we had a couple of good chances to win the match. but it didn't just go our way. So of course I wasn't mad about not playing because I also understand the coach. I also know that every player on the team is really important, and at the end of the day, it's a team sport. So the 3 points are the most important, and unfortunately, we just missed out on them on that day.
Is that because of injury that you didn't start as many games last season in 2019 as you did in 2018? Because you were regular in 2018. You were playing in the first 11, and then it was, I think, only 7 games in the starting lineup last season.
Yeah, that's true. At the start of last season, I had an ankle injury that put me out from 6 to 8 weeks. So after that, because the team started playing really well without me, it was hard to come back and get back in the starting lineup. But I think that it was also a good learning point for me last year, because I hadn't had an injury that was quite so big that I had to be out for that long. And I think I learned a lot about myself as a player last season. And I feel that this season gradually become a better player. And I feel like it could be a good year for me to show my ability.
Because you're with one of the main teams in Estonia, as you say, expected to win almost every game, that obviously then means, I guess, the big derbies against Levadia, that's the thing that everybody focuses on for a lot of the season. Biggest crowds and so on, most attention.
Yeah, of course. Flora has always been thought to at least be a contender for the championship. So we know that we have to basically win every game, and with that comes a lot of pressure. But I think it's almost normal already that we have that kind of pressure, because the team that we have right now, we played together for a lot of years. We have a good balance with experienced players, with young players, and everyone knows that in Flora you have to win. Even if sometimes the media writes us off, but we know deep down that we have the ability to be champions again.
You've won 2 of the last 3 titles. There's a motivation then to win every season, to try, even if you've got 3 in a row or 4 in a row, that we have to do it again. That is the job.
Yeah, of course. When the season finishes, you already have to a little bit think about the next season. Everything starts from zero. There are no points that we have above others. Everyone has a fair chance at winning the title, and it means nothing the last championship. So we just have to focus on the now. What was before was before. If we live in the past, I think that's just not good enough for the FC Flora. So we always have to try to be better the next year.
What was it like growing up as the son of a professional footballer, Mart Poom, the goalkeeper who spent a lot of time in England? You were born in Derby yourself. What age were you that you realised, your father was someone who was actually quite well known?
I think it's gradually been something that I've known all of my life, that my father is well known. I think when I moved to Estonia, I think then I gradually understood just how big of an impact my father has had on Estonia or football in general. Obviously, living in England, you could always see that there was a little bit more attention on our family, but it wasn't something that really bothered me, or something that I thought to myself that that's weird, because it was just, I didn't know anything else. And it's always been kind of just a part of how everyday life is.
How old were you when you moved back?
I was 11 years old.
So you're quite significant. So, would English have been your first language at home, or Estonian?
It was mostly Estonian, but it was a little bit of a mix of both. So, because my Estonian wasn't the greatest, so I would speak in kind of a mixed language, using Estonian words, using the English words. But I think gradually moving to Estonia, just thinking in Estonian before English came in a couple of months, so it wasn't that big of a transition for me.
When your father was moving around clubs, then was the family moving as well? Because he obviously Derby, then he went to Sunderland, then he was in London for a bit with Arsenal, Watford.
Yeah, fine. We always moved with him. I think at the start he would go there alone, especially when he moved to London to play for Arsenal first. I remember we always took the train to go up to see him nearly every weekend. But yeah, gradually we would always move to where he was, and it was just a normal part of being son of a footballer, and also, you know, the family had to adapt with that, as I had to move schools and also new friends living in a new area. So of course it wasn't easy, but I think our family understands that that's the price you have to pay.
Did you start playing football in England?
Yeah, I started playing in England. At first, I started training when we were at Sunderland. I think I just went to like a football camp that was 2-3 times a week. But I think it got more serious when we moved to London, when I started playing Sunday League. And then after that, I got into the Watford Academy. And I was in the Watford Academy for 3 to 4 years before moving to Estonia.
And when you moved to Estonia, of course, you kept playing football, but was there a difference in the level of, say, coaching, organization, preparation, comparing to England?
Yeah, of course, there's always different types of football, I think, in each country. In England, obviously, the competition is really high. So even when I was playing in Watford Academy, we had new trialists coming in to try to get in the team almost every week. But back in Estonia, I think you have a little bit more freedom, maybe not that much of a competition. So it's different, but I think that also this competition in England, it also helps the player to really be tough mentally at a very young age. When you're 9, 10 years old and you already have 2-3 players who want your spot in the team, you really have to grow up quickly. And I think that was a really good learning process.
Your father was a goalkeeper. We have some examples of sons of famous goalkeepers doing the same thing. And you're playing as an attacking midfielder. Didn't your father tell you, no, you go in goal?
Yeah, he never told me that. I think I've never really felt pressure to be a goalkeeper. And I think especially my mother wouldn't want me to be a goalkeeper because she's seen all of the injuries and maybe the bad games that my father's had. So I think for her it was even a relief that I chose to play outfield. I just felt that all the time growing up, I just felt more joy putting my father in the goal and shooting against him than him shooting against me. So it was just something that became natural for me.
And now that you're back home in Estonia, I mean, do you find that, I mean, because of the surname, like, you know, Jordi Cruyff, people were watching him anyway a lot more than if he was Jordi Smith or something like that. Do you find that there's a bit more attention on you because you've also now played for Estonia? You're a second generation Poom as a professional footballer.
Yeah, of course, there's pressure, but I think because there's always been that kind of pressure, it's kind of normal for me. I just dealt with it and tried not to think about it because this pressure builds up in the media, and the last thing I want is to be caught up with kind of the hype. So I think it's easier to kind of make the news using my name and mentioning my father, but I guess it's just the price I have to pay to being his son. But yeah, I think when I was coming up in the Estonian League, it was really easy to kind of put my name and mention also him in the news. But gradually, I think I'm trying to make my own stamp and make my own name. So that's what I'm really trying to work towards.
I suppose for a lot of us, Flora, Levadia, now Nomakaliu would get most notice in Europe during the qualifiers of the Champions League and the Europa League. But it'll be a little bit more difficult this year because obviously things are being moved in the calendar. So it might be later in the year that we get a chance to see you. And the weather might be turning a little bit cool. How difficult is it for Estonian clubs? Normally, you played Celtic last season, for example. How difficult is it for where you are in Europe to get through the rounds, to get near the group stages?
Yeah, I think it's always been a big challenge for Estonian clubs, especially playing against big teams in Europe, because our league maybe isn't the most competitive, but we're gradually trying to up the competitiveness every year. But because the competitiveness isn't so big, then sometimes it's easy to kind of have some easier games and kind of not give you the best of your ability. So actually it's really hard for us to just focus on the main goal, which is actually winning the championship, of course, but also playing good in Europe. And if we focus on that, it means that we have to take every game like it's our last, and then we'll always be ready for Europe. And I think that's also the philosophy of Flora, that our ambition isn't only to win the league every year, but it's also to gradually play better in Europe, take the next steps there, and see how far we can go.
How would you deal with the reality as well? Because we see it in the League of Ireland that if a player is particularly good, they go through a few rounds in Europe, that more than likely, within a month, they'll be playing in England again. In the case where the best, domestic players in Estonia, the ones who play internationally, end up playing abroad, how do you manage to keep the incentive going? Because the best players will usually end up playing abroad for a while.
I think it's, especially with this Europe games, there's also a lot of, let's say, noise that goes around the match. Everyone, you don't know who's watching. There can be agents, people from clubs abroad. So I think it's always important to really focus on the goal at hand, which is right now you're at this club, you have to play well this game and also finish this season. And after that, you can look what's happening if you move abroad or not. And I think it's also a big task for the team to keep everyone happy, keep everyone focused, so no one goes along with all this noise, and we can really be together and try to achieve our goal.
Yeah, Markus, in the game against Carlow, you assisted really well around the Sappin, and we can say you assisted in the second goal because it was your shot that was saved and then he scored. And you could have scored as well with a great shot, but goalkeeper just reacted to it. And just seeing that game, I was thinking of how to define you as a player. It seems like you're an attacking midfielder who is timing really well your movement towards the box. So you're a period when you can make that pass, you can make that shot. But how would you define yourself as a footballer?
I think I'm a really interesting footballer in the way that I'm almost like a box-to-box midfielder. So I like to take the ball from, let's say, my defenders and really create the play. But also I like to finish the play. So get into the box, take the final shot, give an assist. So for me, it's come naturally because when I moved from England to Estonia, I started playing midfield because in England I was playing left back at Watford. So when I started playing in midfield, it was our philosophy that I had this kind of freedom to really take the ball and make the plays and also finally arrive in the box. So I think it's also a bonus for me that because of my ability, I can play holding midfielder, attacking midfielder, box-to-box midfielder. So it gives me a lot of options and also the coach a lot of options in how to use me on the field.
Now you have as a teammate Konstantin Vassiljev, one of the greatest Estonian players ever. What is there to learn from a footballer like him?
I think there's a lot to learn. He's an amazing player with an amazing career, and we don't even have to talk about what he's done for the national team. He's just a really professional and really good character to have in the changing room. Everything he says to any player is worth listening to. And also on the field, if you have a guy like him next to you, it's easy to rely on him when it gets tough, and also to find a way to let him make you better, because his passes are sometimes so good that you don't even understand them, and after you think like, how did he see that pass? and it's just the way he is, and he's like that every day in training, in the matches, and he's a really fundamental part of the Flora squad right now.
So we're not trying to get you sold or to fish you off to agents or so on, but is there a sort of an ambition in the average Estonian League player to say, I would love a chance at a bigger league at some stage?
I think there has to be, especially if you play for FC Flora, your ambitions have to be big, because if you already play for FC Flora, I think you have to be one of the best footballers in Estonia. So your ambitions shouldn't stop there. And I think it's almost easy to kind of feel good about your position, and you're fighting for the title every year, but ultimately I think you will grow more as a player if you work towards finally playing abroad. So I think that it's very important for any player to think like this, because in Estonia I don't think that many people feel like they're a fully professional player before I think they make their move abroad. Also, moving abroad brings you the chance to play for the national team more than maybe playing the Estonian League, and that would also be a big step forward for any player.
And in the next few weeks, Flora, you've got big derbies against Kalju, you're playing Levadia the week after. How much do you look forward to a schedule like that with big games one after the other?
I think it's obviously enjoyable that we have these games, because we were so long without any games, that now having a really tight schedule and almost every game looks like it will be a tough one. So it's really enjoyable to train every day to work towards some kind of goal, because at one point we didn't have anything to really look forward to, but just thinking that maybe the league will start again. So now that we have these games in place, it's almost easier to train and be focused, so we can be ready for every game that's to come.
As we speak, it's the 1st of June, but exactly 4 years ago, on the 2nd of June of 2016, you made your debut for the under-19 national team, and you were still 17 at the time. Over those 4 years, what would be the highlights of you playing for different national teams of Estonia? Was it the goal you scored against Slovakia for under-21, so a couple of games against Spain that must have been a really, really good learning curve?
Yeah, of course. I think playing in the national team at any youth age is a really big pleasure for any player, and it's a big achievement. And yeah, especially usually my debuts have gone really well. So for the under-21s, I scored on my debut. That was obviously a really good day for me personally, but unfortunately we lost that match. So that was a kind of bittersweet feeling. Also making my national team debut in Qatar against Finland, for me was also a big day and an enjoyable day. I think also I've had one game for under-23s where I also captained the squad and I scored. So that was also a very good day for me and the team. I just feel that there's always this passion and pressure to win in a good way that comes naturally by being in the national team. And I always really enjoyed that.
Yeah, but you mentioned that, okay, still team lost to Slovakia when you scored for under-21s, and probably that's the feeling you go away with after so many games for the national team. So would there be, alongside you, a generation of players who can say, okay, that's enough, we can do what Latvia did in 2004, let's say, and qualify for the European Championship, or do something that would get us closer to a bigger tournament?
Yeah, I think it's something that is always, well, people are always looking to how can we improve, how can we build up our football, our philosophy, so gradually we can be on the bigger stages. But I think it's also a learning process that sometimes we might play well and we will lose the match. And I felt that this was the case many times with the under-21, that actually we had a really good squad. We could play nice football, but we just had something missing. And I think when we find what has been missing, then we will always make the jump forward. But I think that the national team is really having a lot of spotlight and trying to find ways to be better and really make that step, so everyone feels determined to do that.
Were you at the stadium when Estonia played Ireland in the qualifiers for the Euro 2012?
Yes, I remember even going to the stadium when they played here in Estonia. and it was really a big occasion, so I remember it really well.
So that's something to look forward to, and then become a winner in such a game.
Yeah, of course. I think it would be any footballer's dream to play in those kind of games. Obviously in that game I played Konstantin Vasiljev, so to be able to train with him, I think it also shows that to learn from him, you can also maybe be there one day. And these games, are not only popular in Estonia, but all around the world, from playing against Ireland or whoever. So it would be really a big goal for me to someday maybe firstly play in the national team again, and maybe try to get into the playoffs.
Markus, thank you very much for that. Best of luck for the rest of the season. You still have most of the rest of the season to go, but hope it goes well for you and the rest of the time, the rest of the year, general life in Estonia.
Yeah, thank you. That's
it for now. The next couple of weeks see La Liga, Serie A and the Premier League all return. It's definitely been fun turning the spotlight on some more unusual leagues for you. As usual, please do like, rate and subscribe where possible. It helps others see it. And we're now also on YouTube and Acast as well. Until next time then, from Dimitri Julai, Stefan Jorny, Mark Rodden and me, Will Downing, it's goodbye. Look after yourselves.